We're going to be having a topic on the main stage for fan engagement and commercialization, the opportunities and the challenges. Well, we're going to have one gentleman who's going to be moderating this session as well. We're going to call onto the stage Edem Spio. He's the African Business of Sports, the host for the podcast. Edem, welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, how you doing? Can you hear them?
Can you hear me?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
You have a very, very engaging session coming. Fan engagements.
Yes.
How to commercialize it.
Yeah.
You looking forward to it?
Big time. I always do research into it, and I believe that Africa, the way we are very passionate about sports, especially with football, and knowing that the African women's teams are doing very well at the World Cup, there's so many opportunities to really leverage on that and move from me just going to a game to spending money on a game.
Brilliant stuff. Over to you now, Edem, as you usher in your panel members and you take over this session. Good luck.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sisho. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the third session for the day. Just as Sisho said, we will be focusing on fan engagement and how to commercialize it, both the opportunities and the challenges. Clap your hands as we invite in Cynthia Mumbo, who is the CEO of Sports Connect in Kenya. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Cynthia, you're around. I think they will come. And the second person is Mohamed Elbadry, CEO of Kora Stats. A few minutes as our speakers come on stage. Thank you. How many of us are active and willing to listen to this conversation? Who here loves fan engagement as much as I do? Let me see by hands. Fantastic. I think this will be a good conversation. A round of applause again, ladies and gentlemen, for our speakers on the panel. Cynthia Mumbo, as I mentioned, CEO of Sports Connect Africa. Thank you very much. Have a seat. And Mohamed Elbadry, CEO of Kora Stats.
Hello.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
We all know the undeniable impact of fan engagement in Africa. When it comes to football, nations like South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria know how to support their own. And Cynthia, you've been in this industry for a very long time. It's almost like second nature to you. Share with us how fan engagement has developed or evolved over the years, and what are some of the key opportunities you have noticed that organizations on the continent and of the continent can leverage on to be more commercial?
Is it morning or is it afternoon?
Afternoon.
My body is in Kenyan time, so we're ahead. Good afternoon, everyone.
It's good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back here again. I love my Ghanaian people, so thank you very much. Well, thank you. Well, first, what is fan engagement? And I think that is an important question. We need to understand what fan engagement is because, like you said, Nigeria does a good job, but does it? Ghana does a good job, but do they? We assume Kenya does a good job because we see the runners, but the question is, what is fan engagement and who are the fans? Who do we consider the fans? Who are the key stakeholders when it comes to fan engagement? So I'll say it very simply, fan engagement is the conversations you have with your fans. So anyone who has the opportunity to engage, and by engagement here we mean watching, by engagement here we mean experiences, by engagement we mean, how do fans access you as a club or you as an athlete. And so we've come a long way, but I think we still have some way to go. I think I'll give an example of a country that's doing some amazing stuff. If you look at Tanzania, and I'm so glad, guys, Senzo Mbatha, who is from South Africa. Senzo, please.
A hand of applause for him.
I imagine that we'll all have a conversation. We'll all get to listen to Senzo at some point. But if you look at what's happening in Tanzania, everybody's all of a sudden talking about Simba, everyone's talking about Yanga, and when you look at You look at them and you see the stadium's full. I mean, I think with Yanga and Simba now, on average, you have 60,000 people coming to the stadium. Yes. And this is at home. So if I ask, in Nigeria, do we have those numbers at home? Guys, we're not talking about Arsenal or whatever. We're talking about, Simba Yanga. He was also at, not Kaiser Chiefs, Orlando Pirates. So this is the guy that has built these brands. Fan engagement can happen unless at the back office, you're organized. So fans will only connect with something that they can relate to. Agreed?
Yeah.
How many guys are fans of Asante Kotoko here? I'm a fan of Asante Kotoko, so I'll tell you why. Because I know it. It's because I know. I'm a Kenyan who, if you ask me any club in Ghana, that's the first thing that will come. Why? Because the club has made the concerted effort for me, who is out of the typical access of Ghana, to know that there's something called Asante Kotoko. It's a proud club. It's got this. Going back to Tanzania, you look at, and I'll speak about Yanga because I have a relationship with Yanga, and I think we should have been having the president of Yanga sitting with us today. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. Yes. But when you think about the way they relate, it is very strategic. So there's a strategy around how they connect. And that's where the opportunities are coming in. What platforms do we have to connect to fans? Is it on the stadium? Is it on TV? Is it on the digital platform? Is it through the athletes? What platforms do we have? And how do we leverage on that? Again, fan engagement is about data. Last year when I was here, I asked a question to the clubs. How many clubs are here again? How many people are representing clubs? It doesn't matter if it's basketball or football, because we need to move from football. So whatever sports. How many guys are representing clubs? Or how many federations? Just by a show of hands. Last year I asked a question. How many of us know how many fans we have? I'm asking again this year, because we are moving to get better. How many of us know our membership numbers? Or certain, so you know? Okay, one guy out of, I think, the 20, 30 hands that are up.
Yeah.
That's data. How then do you know how to engage with someone if you do not know who they are and where to find them? Senzo, am I right? How do you know? And so that is where the opportunity is. I'll go back and say, let's look at Africa. We have a very big population, 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
65% under, and this is data, guys, so this is important for us, 65% under the age of 35, I think.
Yeah.
What does that tell us? We're a young continent. What do these guys do in their free time? They watch sports, they watch football, they are on esports, they're on whatnot. And they're engaging with the international spaces. Not so much our local ones, as much as we would like. So if we're having a conversation around getting to know who these people are, where do you find them? You find them on their phones. So why isn't your brand on that phone? Why isn't your brand speaking the language that they're speaking? What reward do you have for these fans? I think there's always the assumption that as fans, as long as we have a game going on the pitch, the fun is going to come.
That's not the reality anymore.
It's not. How many of you guys just wake up and go for a football game?
Wow.
In the last 1 month, how many of us I like to interact with people because you are the fans. We are the fans, right? As much as we are the ones that run clubs, we are the fans. So how many of us woke up and decided to go for, the sport that everyone goes for? Just woke up and decided to go for football? 1.
4 guys.
2.
3. So 3 out 4. Okay, good. But guys, we are the guys in sports. So can you imagine if we are not thinking of going into the football game? That guy out there, you think he's going to care?
No.
But that's the opportunity. How do we make him care? And that is what fan engagement is all about.
Wow, that's very powerful. And I'm sure you can agree that the way you broke it down is extremely important. We need to understand where it starts and where we can get to. Mohamed, in your role at Kora's stats where you've, really researched deeply into fan engagement numbers. And I'm sure you agree here that we're getting to a point where engagement is going online, becoming very digital. So with data analysis and consumer insights playing a crucial role to understand the behavior of a fan, how can African sports organizations leverage on that? For instance, if there's a CAF Champions League final, you know how with the UEFA Champions League final, you would see months ahead of time all the hype, the build-up, whether it's with esports or activations and communities and whatnot. Take, for example, this year's Champions League final. They brought legends in the game to come and do activations in Istanbul. That is very important. How can African sports organizations leverage on this with our unique way of doing things to start to see where almost every game, whether it's Tanzania, South Africa, Ghana, you're getting at least 15,000 to 20,000 people going to the stadium and following through with the games?
I think we shouldn't look at the big competitions like UEFA. Let's take a look at Germany, 4th division, and see the number of fans in the stadiums.
Wow.
Lots of games are full because these clubs are doing effort and running their clubs as companies, as a business. How do you build a fan base? That's the question. People come to the stadium if they feel connected, as Cynthia was saying. She knows Ashanti Kotoko because she sees them spoken to her. This is what the clubs need to do, is to connect to their communities. How many times we've seen clubs going to schools to do events, to Mr. Nunu was talking today about the clubs and what they're doing regarding I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I have some water?
Thank you.
When you talk about the clubs, what they're doing to the communities, that will build them the fan base they need. Right now, we're living in a digital era. How many games are being broadcasted on TV?
Yeah.
If you look at the Ghana Premier League, for example, we have like less than half of the games being broadcasted. If the fans cannot watch their teams on TV, probably they'll not go to the stadium to do
100%.
If we talk about the infrastructure in the stadium, how many stadiums do we have that has food and beverage, restaurants, nice fan experience when I go there? How many of them has that? You'll find we have 2-3 stadiums, but during the game itself, is it a good experience for the family to come to the stadium? Or is it just younger ages, ultras who's coming because they are the true fans that they love the game, they love the football.
Yeah.
But we want to engage more people. And this is how the clubs need to engage their fan base by doing activities to their communities first. And that will bring the people to the stadium later on.
A community first approach is actually what a lot of Premier League clubs do, and they have within their season calendars where there are initiatives for BLM, there's initiatives for marginalized groups, and especially initiatives for women. And I believe, and I'm sure all of you will agree with me, that clubs need to start going out there. For the younger generation coming up in Africa, we need to see more clubs going into the teams, going into the schools to have activations and be relevant. And I believe...
Let me add something else. What we're talking about right now, if you look at where the grassroots are, the kids are in the schools already, but the clubs are investing in youth teams. However, the club should invest in coaches, and coaches should be in the schools. Hence, we will not need any grassroots anymore in the clubs and do the dual what we, in Egypt, for example, most of the mothers, after the school, they take kids to the clubs and they train, they get back. When I was in the States, as a kid, it was very easy. You go to the school, we have a coach, we train the school, we go back home, do our homework, everything is done. If your grades are not good at the school, you get expelled from the football team.
Wow.
So they're relating both educational side and the sports side. So that's why when we compare NBA, for example, to the rest of the world, they're in a different league. Compare the American sports that excel in schools to any other sport worldwide, even with Europe, they excel it. Because you need 10,000 hours of hard working to get the right super athletes or high performance athletes. You will never get that unless they train in the school. And we all think about, the clubs all the time talk about scouting, finding talents. This is a myth. I don't believe in talent. I believe in hard working. And you will never know if this kid is going to be a talent or not unless you know his mindset when he grows up. Because talent is about the mindset. It's not about the physical or DNA things. That is okay, good. It can add to you if you have the right qualities of being an athlete later on. But you also have to have education, because after the sports life, which is maybe 10 years, 15 years, what are you going to do with your life? So it's a whole ecosystem, and you need to have all the stakeholders, from the educational, from the sports, from the club, and we run this as a business that will create what Africa is lacking right now. I think all of Africa is very similar to each other. We don't have much differences.
Wow, I mean, that's a very interesting point you've made there. This is a segue into the next part, where I believe for young people, one thing that makes it very easy for us to be engaged in anything that we see is representation. And when it comes to women's sports in Africa this year, Banyana, this, today they went on to the next stage, which is very powerful. A round of applause for them. The Super Falcons have qualified for the next stage, and we hope that Morocco can join us as well.
Yeah.
Now, for the young girl child who is seeing Asisa Toshola, who is seeing Temi Kaglanga, who is seeing Barbara Banda, what does it mean for them, with inspiring them to the extent that it becomes like tears in their eyes, saying, "Mommy, I want to become like them. I want to be able to play for my nation and enjoy the sport that I love"?
I'm very honored to be the one to be asked that question, because I was an athlete and it was extremely difficult for me to play until at some point my parents figured, you know what, we might as well support her. So the women in this room who have been athletes will tell you, first, culturally, we're not expected to be on a court or on a pitch or on a field somewhere. Even if you do, go and play and then come back home, because there's the expectation. So it's so great to see what's happening in the world of sport for women right now. I can say, as we sit here, we set up a group, African Women in Sports Association.
Wow.
So Bev is somewhere, and Nketi, and there's several of us. So there is stuff that's happening, and we are hoping that we can be able to support the young women.
Are men allowed to be part?
Why not? And we are allowed to be part of the rest of sport.
Yes.
It's not I feel that, the issue of gender is not necessarily about just, let's talk about women. Let's support women, but let men be part of the support.
100%.
Right? Because it's not separate. It's just that women probably don't have the same opportunities. And so what we're saying is everybody come on board and give women those opportunities. So when I look at what's happening now, with the FIFA World Cup, what's happening now with the AfroBasket, I know that there's AfroBasket going on. What's happening now with the Netball World Cup that's going on in South Africa, and several other things. We're talking about them. That's the thing I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We recognize that they exist. Before, you couldn't hear any conversation around the money that's going into the women's sport. I know today that at least if you get into the quarterfinals, every woman's going home with $60,000. So if there's anyone with a daughter here, get them to play football in the next World Cup. If they're like 6 years, they're coming home with $60,000.
Wow.
We're talking about the money that is available. For the first time ever, we're talking about the numbers. 60,000 people in the stadium. We're talking. And for the longest time, this wasn't a conversation. This wasn't a conversation, All we ever talked about was Arsenal has 300 million fans, or, Man U has this and that. And so how do we cascade that downwards so that we are able to push that conversation for, how many girls are participating in football? How many girls are running? How many girls are this? And how do we then push them to say, our target, let's say, is, we would like to have 500 girls who are sprinters from Nigeria, or 500, or from Africa for that matter, who are participating in A, B, C, D, and we would like Africa to have 200 girls qualifying for, having qualifying times.
Wow.
It's all about being very clear about the number, but also being on the ground and telling them that it's possible.
Yeah.
I'm here because somebody made it possible for me. It was an impossible time, I can tell you guys, but I'm here.
Wow.
I'm here because I took the chance on myself, and I would love to tell women and girls out there that it's possible. I mean, you're probably going to face 10 more hurdles, but jump them.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just
Wow.
jump them, focus on the, the end of the line, and keep moving. I'm going to tell the men in the room, encourage your daughters, encourage your wives, encourage your sisters. Sports is for all of us.
And their girlfriends.
Oh, yeah, and their girlfriends. I was kind of holding off on that one. But yes, and your girlfriends as well. Because when, like Obama says, when the woman is given an opportunity, the community, the world changes.
Wow.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
When our mothers are empowered, when our sisters are empowered, our communities are empowered. We're not like men. We don't like war. Tell me one war that was started by women. Okay, we might be the reason behind the war, but we might be the reason behind the war, but tell me one war that was started by women. We're always in the room when people need peace and calm and movement. So support women, and don't forget that women are fans too. We might just watch sport differently, but women are fans too. We come out of our house. The thing is, whenever there's a conversation around fan engagement and the target group is so often the men, because the assumption is that it's the men that go into the stadium, it's the men that, are the ones who engage with teams, it's the men that buy shirts. But when you think about it, women love sports just as much. They might not necessarily be in the stadium as often as men, but maybe that's because no one's talking to them and telling them, come, we'll have a cooking thing at the back if they like cooking, or we'll have this kind of experience for you, or we'll have a women's networking forum after that. Come, there's something for you. As we reach out to all these fans, let's think about reaching out to and I really, really like the point that you raised. Our teams are not going to the schools.
Yeah.
I would love to see my Gorma here team going into the primary schools and having, meet and greets with the kids and having the coaches have coaching experience. I'm taking that with me, by the way. So at Sports Connect Africa, we'll start that. Get the teams to go to the schools.
That's very powerful.
Very, very powerful. There's something that's happening, I think, post-COVID, and I'll say this from a Kenya perspective, just segueing off a little bit from the women. If you go into the school games, the stadiums, local stadiums, are extremely full, post-COVID. So if you go into, the local, let's say Nyanza region, we had 15, 20,000 people in a stadium, and it was high school games, and Western region as well. And so that community aspect is extremely, extremely important. And I think we forget that sometimes, especially because you live in the city, and you're wondering why people... Pre-COVID, I think people used to come to the stadium. Post-COVID, not so much. So then, how then do we go back to the communities and then bring them into the cities?
Ladies and gentlemen, support women in sports because number one, they are fans themselves, and number two, they embody Ubuntu when it comes to sports. Mohamed, we are well aware that one of the key areas you tend to study a lot when it comes to sports, especially women's sports, is the North Africa region. And right now, they are leading the way when it comes to intentional, consistent investments. I know for a fact that in Morocco right now, there are more communities having spaces where within a particular period of time in the day, those playgrounds or those sports places are meant for girls to participate because they see the potential. We see Right Dream doing so well with the Egyptian Women's League. We're seeing people at the top notch at the North Africa leading the way. How can other nations really learn from them and start to see a world where it's no more women's sports or men's sports, it's youth sports?
So, would you rephrase again the last part of your question?
How can other African nations leverage on what is going on in the north of Africa that we get to a point where we no more talk about women's sports or men's sports, but it's about youth sports?
I think in North Africa, it's there is a political side in sports very much, and it's very important that the clubs there are a bit different than here in what I see in Ghana. And in Ghana, it's more about the sport itself, other than the political side. But for example, in Egypt, it's super important to have clubs like Al-Ahli, Zamalek. It's important for the whole country, the national team as well. But I think in Ghana, we need to make the clubs more into spending in creating brand of themselves, rather than just being a sports club with all their interest is to sell players. For example, in Egypt, I don't know if you're aware of Al-Ahli recently acquired Imam Ashur from Denmark.
Yeah.
And the players coming from Europe to play back in Egypt.
Wow.
And everybody is happy about that because they're bringing back Egyptian players to play in the country.
Yeah.
Because these players in their communities are very highly affecting everybody. They're role models, people are looking up to them, the kids are looking up to them, and they're generating revenues for the clubs because also they bring attraction from brands, advertisements, commercials, and this is the way they should clubs look at the business side, that they need to look at from that perspective. You need to build your club as a brand name so that you attract sponsors, you attract commercials. Later on, you have your own stadium, own facilities, because that's important. When you look at the football in general, it's a facility, a management, or management of the facility, then a coaching staff, then the players. But lots of other countries, it's the other way around. Players come first, then the coaches, then the facility, then the management. But if we turn the pyramid to the base first, and top of the pyramid is the management we have, I think things will be much, much different. Right now, women football is going to be the next oil, the next place where we bring
like that.
money from. But in Africa, we're playing women football because we're forced it. The FIFA is pushing, the CAF is pushing. Now every club has it, but it's not because we want to do that, because this is going to be the next big thing. But that we have to change that. You were talking about, I'm saying behind every medal in the Olympics, there's a mother or a father. Because the mothers who's taking the kids to training, they're doing the hard work, not the fathers. We may go to some games, cheer a bit, but they are the ones who are waking up in the morning, doing the nutrition. Sometimes my wife even watched the training and see what's the flaws to do the analyst work for my daughters. So mothers do a lot of that hard work. But we don't think about that when we talk about sport. It's like we put them aside and we talk about men and what men are doing and what we're trying to address. So I think right now we need to start first by having professional management at our clubs, because this is super important. I think who was saying that we have an invisible wall that we push people when they come, but we need to have professionals in every aspect. Then we need to have good facilities. You can't have, I was talking to one of the ladies, a coach, and she was saying, we're training on a dust or a sand pitch. But when we play AstroTurf, how can you train your players on a different pitch than the one you're going to play on? So to build the team, you have to build a facility. And you will always ask the chicken or egg, the money first comes or the brand name comes. You have to go hand in hand. Lots of things can be done, like, for example, clubs can have open like shares for their community to buy shares at these other clubs. That will bring money to the clubs, create a loyal fan, and also increase the revenues of the clubs to be able to do other things on the side, like the facilities.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure just like me, you've enjoyed this masterclass from Cynthia and Mohamed. A round of applause for them, please.
Thank you so much.